Hello, I'm J.L.McCrea. Today I'm going to be giving you 6 essential tips on how to write your very own novel, like this one, in this new year. Keep in mind, this video is directed towards those who are beginners. That being said, let's begin.
Tip number 1. You can write at any age. I began writing my book at around 13. By the time I was 16, I had gotten my book published. It started out as a simple idea, but became bigger the more time and thought I put into it. Now, if you have a great idea for a story and you put in the dedication and time to cultivate it, you can write your story no matter how old or young you are. For those who are interested in my book, check out my other video, which gives a basic outline of what it is about. My book is also available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Zulon Press's bookstore. I'll also be doing a series of videos soon on the lore to my book for those who are interested. Tip number 2. Patience is everything. I know that if you were watching this video, that you probably typed in how to be a writer or something along those lines on YouTube's search bar. Now, when you did, you probably came across a video that told you that you could somehow write a book within a very short period amount of time, maybe a couple days, a few hours, a week, a month, give or take a few. And then, of course, they make the claim that after you take the bare minimum amount of time to write that book, that it will somehow self-publish itself and become a New York Times bestseller. Folks, this is not even close to true. I did not wake up one day and tell myself that I wanted to be a writer. And the next thing you know, I had a bunch of pieces of paper strung out everywhere. And I'm just typing and writing random stuff. And what do you know? A book falls out of the sky with a cover and everything, and I'm rich and famous. Guys, this is not even close to true. Writing takes a really, really long time. It took me 4 years to write my book. It's probably going to take you a year or more to write yours, unless if it's a really short novella or if you're writing a poem or a short story, what have you. If you're doing a full-length novel, it's going to take a year. This leads into my next tip. Tip number 3. Be serious and dedicated. This is the number 1 test on whether or not you are truly meant to be a writer. Ask yourself this question. Do you feel like your story is so big, so important, and so entertaining that if it were not written, that a part of you would physically die? That you would be left feeling depressed and that the world is worse off without your story? If your answer is yes, congratulations, you are a writer. But remember, it's going to take time, so stay dedicated. Now, if your answer was no, well, you're not a writer. Chances are that you want to be a writer simply because you think you would look cool or that it would be cool to be a writer. That's not enough, and you'll never be able to be a genuinely good storyteller. So do yourself a favor, find another hobby, and please stop worrying so much about what other people think about you. Now, the other issue could be that your story is not developed enough if your answer was no. If that is the case, don't fret, I have a tip for this. Tip number 4. Stories have beginnings, middles, and ends. If you are struggling to make your idea into a full story, stop and think about it for a while. Take at least 6 months or more to think of the plot. Then sit down and outline your plot on paper, sticky notes, or however way you like. Now, keep in mind, every chapter in your book has to advance the story and also has to have a beginning, middle, and end. And yes, cliffhangers are a definitive end to a chapter or a book. A good test to see on whether or not your chapter should or should not be in the book. Ask yourself this question. If I remove this chapter in my book, would it change the story? If your answer is yes, keep the chapter. If your answer is no, delete the chapter or rewrite it into an important chapter. Tip number 5. Great writing is rewriting. Writing is mostly composed of rewriting. Now, a lot of people freak out when they hear the word rewriting, mainly because people have this weird and unrealistic notion that first drafts are the final and best drafts. This is not true at all. Drafts are like blueprints. Treat them as such. You use first drafts to catch your mistakes, not to get upset over them. To give you a good visualizer on what writing is like, drafts are like a block of marble. You chip away at the marble a piece at a time, and eventually you'll have a statue. It's good, but it's still a little rough and it needs more work. So you chip away some more, and now you have a fantastic statue. And everyone who will look at it will say,
"You, sir, are the greatest artist who ever lived!"
okay, yes, that was a bit of a cheesy joke, but I cannot stress it enough. The number one thing that you want in your book is quality. You don't want to rush through your book. Take the time that you need to take with your book, writing and rewriting it. The last thing you want to do is publish a book filled with mistakes and plot holes. Tip number 6. This is the last, and I personally think, greatest tip that a writer could ever have. Just sit down and write. Yes, it really is that simple. Friends, you're not going to know until you get there. If you're struggling with a particular problem in your story or want me to expand more on this subject or on another subject in regard to writing, comment down below and I will give you a response or a follow-up video. Thank you for watching. I hope everything will go well with your own writing. God bless.